Here we go. Okay, so the book that I read is The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Hamid. Basically, the overall plot of the story is this guy changes. He moves from Pakistan into the U.S. He goes to Princeton, and he is living an incredible life. He just gets a job at a valuation firm in the U.S. He starts dating this girl named Erica, and everything's seemingly incredible with her. And what happens is, while everything's going so well for him, 9/11 strikes, and he sees a change in the way he's treated, the way his relationship is going, and everything about his life is just changing because of this one event that he had nothing to do with. And he, after the falling out of his relationship and that doesn't work out, he just gets so down and he just says, I can't work. And he decides to quit his job, and he's forced to move back to Pakistan because he got deported. And so when he moves back to Pakistan, he decides he's going to start being a professor at the local college where he's from in Lahore. And when he moves there and he's being a professor, he is teaching his students about what's going on. And what was going on then is that the U.S. was deciding whether or not to invade Pakistan. And so he was in a real internal struggle because there was conflict between the country that he was born and raised in and the country that he got everything from. And so he decides, well, he's really just having a tough time, but he thinks, like, I'm not biased. I have no bias in the sense, like, what the U.S. is doing is wrong. They should not invade into Pakistan. And so he's telling his students this, and what's happening is he's really, like, really passionate about what's going on, and he's telling all his students about what's going on as well, and they just decide, like, we need to protest. Like, we need to say, like, the U.S., we know what you're doing is wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. And so what happens is he like decides the whole book. It's at the very end. They reveal that he had been talking to a U.S. reporter the whole time, telling his whole life story, what had happened. And when he figures out what happened, like the U.S. guy, it doesn't say it exactly, and it's like really sad ending. It just says that he pulls something in his wallet, and he hopes that it's like the billfold of his wallet, because like he sees that it's metal, and one can assume that he got murdered, and it's just like it's such a shame because he had nothing to do with 9/11, and he's gone because of his protests about what the U.S. is doing. And so with that, there comes a big theme in the book that the U.S. isn't always right, and like I know I think this way. I know a ton of people at James River do. I know a ton of people all around the country do. They just think the U.S. is always right. And like anything the U.S. doing, like they're the good guys, and whoever they're going against is the bad guys. And this book actually like changed the way I think about that so much. Because like I learned that no matter what's going on, you have to see both sides. And like I'm an American. I love America still. That's not going to change ever. But like the U.S. isn't always right, and we learn that in history. And like we can learn that especially through this book. And so basically it's just you learn it in several ways in this book. You learn it in that the U.S. was going to invade Pakistan in search for members of Al Qaeda because of 9/11, but like they had no grounds, and you can't really prove why they would want to. It doesn't make sense in history, and so that's such a struggle in the book, and they're talking about that. And what happens is, they just go for it, and they just consider it, and like Pakistan has nothing to do with it, and you have to realize like that's wrong, and the U.S. is not. The U.S. is in the wrong there. You also have to think. You also have to think about the fact that that guy in the very end of the book murdered him. It wasn't like, and he heard his whole story out. He knows his whole life story, and decides like he's a threat to the United States. He needs to be taken away. And another reason that you can think that the U.S. is wrong is like he was doing so much for the U.S. He was like an incredible part of society. He was making a lot of money. He was so smart, and he was like such a great person to be in America. And after 9/11 happens, like literally just blind judgments of him is what sent him out of the country. And it's just so sad because it's so sad that like Americans would just profile someone like that. I know I do it. I know like everyone does that. And it's just like a real shame. And this book has really, really, really changed the way I see like my perception of America. and it makes me realize that when they do anything, I need to look at both ways of what's going on. And that's basically it. This is a little bit longer than it's supposed to be, but it's The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Hamid. It's an awesome book. It really changed the way I think about everything, and I'm really glad that I read it. Thank you.